Welcome to Warhunhub. There are nights when the sky itself feels alive, when every gust of wind whispers secrets, and every star above hides a story of men who dared to touch it. And one night in 1960, the silence of that sky was broken by the roar of a machine that was never meant to be seen. The U-2, a long silver shadow slicing through the edge of heaven. It was more than a plane. It was America's invisible eye, a ghost built to climb higher than any missile could reach its mission. Simple and impossible. See what no man was allowed to see: the Soviet heart, the secret fields, the hidden bases, every flicker of power behind the Iron Curtain. For years, it flew unseen above the world. The pilots were ghosts too, men whose names lived only in sealed envelopes, whose missions never existed. Francis Gary Powers was one of them, not a soldier, not a hero, just a man with steady hands and quiet eyes, who loved the sound of engines more than his own heartbeat. He had flown higher than anyone before, and now he was about to fly a mission that would change the world forever. It was May 1st, 1960. The world below was celebrating May Day. Parades, tanks, banners, and songs. But high above it all, one thin shadow drifted across the Soviet sky. Francis sat in the tiny cockpit, staring through the curved glass at an ocean of clouds below him. The sun, so bright it burned white against his visor. He had done this before many times. He knew the feeling of silence at 70,000 feet, the way the earth curved like a painting beneath him, the feeling of being untouchable. But today, something was different. The radio was too quiet, the air too still, the instruments too perfect. Then a voice from far away whispered in his headset, "Proceed to waypoint 6. Stay high, stay steady." The U-2 obeyed like a living thing slicing across the border, invisible to radar, or so he thought. Down below, Soviet radar operators saw a thin line, a blip too high to be a bird, too slow to be a meteor. Someone shouted, "Intruder!" And in that single moment, the Cold War turned from silent to loud. Soviet generals scrambled their best missiles they had tried and failed before. The U-2 flew too high, too fast. But this time they had something new, a weapon that could reach the edge of space. The S-75 Divina, a spear of fire waiting to strike. Francis never saw it coming. At 70,000 feet, you don't hear thunder, you just feel it. The shock, the flash, the world exploding around you. His plane split open like a wound, the silver wings tearing apart. He was falling, spinning, the sky and the earth trading places faster and faster. His breath gone, his mind blank. He pulled the lever, the canopy blew away, and for the first time he saw the world not from above, but from within. As he fell into it, his parachute opened, a white flower against the blue sky, and far below, nation looked up. When he landed, soldiers were already running toward him, rifles raised. He was taken in silence, his face bruised, his suit torn, but his eyes still steady. They had captured the American ghost, the man from the clouds. News traveled slower in those days, but when it reached Washington, it hit like lightning. The United States had lost a spy plane over Soviet territory. The President, Dwight D. Eisenhower, was told the pilot might be alive. The Soviets had evidence, the photographs, the wreckage, the film, and the name. The lie could not hold for long. America had denied the flight, claiming it was a weather research plane lost on routine atmospheric testing. But the Soviets called the bluff and showed the world the shattered plane and the living pilot. It was humiliation wrapped in fear. The Cold War had always been a game of shadows, but now it was exposed. On the global stage, Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, smiled on television and told the world they had proof that America had violated their skies. The U-2 incident became a storm of Words and threats. The summit between the two superpowers collapsed. The fragile bridge between them burned to ash. Francis sat in a Moscow cell, his body healing, his mind unraveling. He had no idea what the world outside was saying about him. Some called him a hero, others a fool. He was interrogated for months, every secret pulled from him with patience and pressure. He had no escape, no silence, no sky, only walls and questions and the endless echo of his own breathing. Back in America, families of the U-2 pilots lived behind locked doors, names erased from records, missions hidden even from their children. The world was on edge. Two men thousands of miles apart, Eisenhower and Khrushchev both staring at a horizon neither could cross. One had sent the plane, one had shot it down, and between them lay the wreckage of trust. In a courtroom in Moscow, Francis stood in front of cameras. The world watched as the man who had once touched the edge of space stood small and human beneath bright lights. He confessed because he had to, because the truth was heavier than silence. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but deep inside the story was not over, because even in the darkest corners of the Cold War, there were men who believed no one should be forgotten. 2 years later, across oceans and borders, a new secret began to form: a trade, a silent exchange. The Soviets held powers the Americans held. Rudolf Abel, a Soviet spy captured years earlier. Both nations wanted their men back, but pride and politics tangled every step. It took months of whispers, back channels, and promises until finally in February 1962, on a gray morning in Berlin, two men walked across a bridge, the Glienicke Bridge, known as the Bridge of Spies, one from east, one from west. The air cold, the world watching as they crossed paths and were free again. Francis returned home, not to parades, but to questions people wanted to know: why he had not destroyed the plane, why he had not taken his own life as the training demanded. But how could they understand what it means to fall from the sky, what it means to see the edge of the world collapse around you? He was alive. That was his crime and his victory. The U-2 still flew, but never again with the same innocence. Technology marched forward. Satellites replaced wings, cameras replaced eyes. The sky grew quieter, but the world below grew louder. Every nation watching every movement, afraid of the next shadow overhead. The incident became a memory, a lesson written in cold air and fear. Years later, Francis would write about those moments, about the sound of the missile, the silence before the fall. He would fly again for a time, but he never truly left that sky. He died years later in another aircraft, a helicopter crash in 1977, and in a strange way the sky that had once betrayed him called him home. The world he left behind had changed. The Cold War was ending. The walls were falling and new eyes watched the world from orbit. But the echo of that May morning never faded, because that was the day the invisible became visible, the day one man's fall made two nations tremble. It reminded humanity that even in the age of machines, it takes only one heartbeat to start a storm. When you look up at the thin line of blue above the clouds, when you hear the whisper of a jet carving through the stratosphere, you are hearing the ghosts of men like Powers, the dreamers, the watchers, the ones who flew too high, not for glory, but for duty, for belief, for the fragile promise that knowledge could protect us. They flew into danger so the world could sleep a little safer. But safety is an illusion, and the sky keeps its secrets still somewhere above. The silence remains broken only by the echo of wings and the memory of a moment when the world almost forgot how small it truly is beneath the endless sky. More watching videos to subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.